Welcome to Jalen Jacoby and Happy New Year. In for Jalen Rose, we have Mike Golick Jr. Thanks so much for doing the show, Mike. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me. No, Jalen's vacation marathon continues, and I am reaping all the benefits.
Perfect. Well, there was a lot of college football to discuss with you, but the action at the Sugar Bowl started way before kickoff. There was this interaction. I'm not sure if this is a setup meeting between the mascots, but there's Uga. Look at Bevo. Bevo, look at that, coming after Uga, breaking through the fence. Mike, when you saw this, did you think right after this they should have just forfeited the game and just given the win to the Texas Longhorns? Because it was really clear what was going to happen after that.
In college football, as much as anything, energy, emotion, these kids are volatile. You've got to take this all into account. As soon as I saw this, I said that's the energy in the stadium that they are going to feed off of. So I'm glad Uga got out of this one unscathed, but I knew after that it's curtain call for the Bulldogs. No chance.
It's also like when I saw this video, I'm like, that is a dangerous animal. As a single human being who has never handled cattle in his life, I don't even know how to reason with Bevo, how to stop Bevo. They put these little tiny fences around Bevo. Bevo's not going to be stopped by those fences. And look at those horns. And look at that photographer right there. This one photographer got hit by the horn. The other one got hit by his nose. This is like a foot away from being a very, very different news story if this went differently.
This is a weaponized horse. It's got 3-foot spikes on its head. I was next to Bevo at the Big 12 championship game, and that was when I realized the people around him, the quote-unquote handlers, that's just a courtesy. That's just to create the illusion of protection. Really, you have no control over this thing.
It really is, and because this is a very important story for us, we did a little more digging. Take a look at this video of after the incident. So Bevo has now tried to attack a dog, and took out some humans in it, but watch what they did. Got Bevo's leash here, and watch this dude. Look, they can't get Bevo to do anything, right? Those are just swords swinging around. And watch what he does with this leash. Watch this. Oh, I'm just gonna tie it to that thing. Oh, no big deal. I'm just gonna throw it on the other side of that fence there. That's like a 4,000-pound animal. It could easily take that fence down. We always just saw it take down fences. Do we need to take more precaution with Bevo moving forward? I say that semi-seriously.
Realistically, when I saw Bevo, he looked like he was so sedated that he was never even going to think about moving. Clearly, he's just been playing coy. He's been laying in wait until he has an opportunity to strike. So we've got to do something, because you either have to take extreme measures or you have to just acknowledge that we were all waiting around for the worst case scenario here, because there's no middle ground when it comes to a 1,500-pound bull.
And there's four, looks like we counted 1, 2, 3, 4 Bevo handlers. One did absolutely nothing. You see that guy in the jacket on the right side? He did absolutely nothing when Bevo attacked. Absolutely nothing. How many handlers think it's enough handlers? I think 4 is probably right, but they definitely need to tie up the leash a little more securely. Well, they actually did play the game after that incident. I can't imagine it, but they did play the game, and it didn't go as many expected. The Texas Longhorns behind Sam Ehlinger, running all over the place. This was just like Cam Newton and Tim Tebow all at once. He was scoring touchdowns, and not only that, he made a proclamation after the football contest that really got people excited after the game. Let's listen to Sam's post-game comments.
For all these fans who are in the stands and those who are watching on TV, what does this do to set up Texas for a springboard into next season?
Longhorn Nation, we're back!
Caught up in the emotion after a big win, or are the Longhorns back?
You know what? I don't really care. It's one of those things. The idea of Texas being back matters so much more to me than the actuality of the situation. Yeah, they're going to come into next season pretty highly ranked coming off of this win. There's going to be a lot of public support. Certainly, Tom Herman's a guy that people have been ready to see succeed there ever since he took over on the job. But in a conference that, quite frankly, I think still going to be dominated by Oklahoma, who cares about that as much as the idea of these guys clearly embracing what has been a viral meme before and will continue to clearly be one going into 2019.
Is there a little something about both Georgia and UCF losing that kind of justified the top 4 teams?
I think so, absolutely. Using any of these bowl games, these one-game samples a month after the decisions were made about the college football playoff is a fool's errand however you want to do it. If you thought Georgia was deserving of being in the college football playoff before, and you still do now, I can understand that a lot more than someone who uses this to retroactively try and insert them in this conversation. We've got these 12 and 13 game sample sizes for a reason, because what you ultimately put out there still has to matter. Even if you and I want to look at a team and say, yeah, they look like one of the best four, you have to show me if you're that team still.
Well, the Buckeyes were sort of on the outside of that conversation when it came time to make those decisions for the Final Four, but they did go to the Rose Bowl, and they put up a pretty impressive win, holding off the Huskies from Washington out there in Pasadena. And this was obviously the last game of head coaching for Urban Meyer. Or was it? Tom Rinaldi spoke with Urban Meyer after the game. Let's listen to see what he had to say.
What are the chances we'll never see you lead another team out of a tunnel?
I don't believe that's going to happen. If I'm going to enjoy it tonight, I don't believe I'm going to coach again.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Tom.
I don't believe I'm ever going to be late for work again. I don't believe I'm ever going to have ice cream again. I don't believe that I'm ever going to drink again. I don't believe I'm ever going to make any bad decisions again. But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna. Do you think Urban Meyer coaches, and I'm going to guess you're going to say yes, when do you think he'll be back?
I think it's going to be at least a 3-year window. The one thing I do take seriously is this idea when you're talking about a cyst in someone's brain, I look at that as a pretty serious condition that you're going to want to monitor, and no one doubts these stressors that come along with coaching, but you also see it time and time again here at our own network. These guys, they get some time off, they get some time away, and hopefully a lot of them get healthy and get a chance to relax, but they can't kick that habit. Coaching is an addiction on par with anything else, and these guys they talk about craving the feet under their grass, holding the clicker in their hand, and I think Urban Meyer's one of those guys that has done this for so long at such a high level that you just miss that competition in a way that I don't think he's going to be able to always walk away from for the long run here.
One thing that I found interesting about this story that doesn't get talked about as much is he's like a special assistant athletic director that will still hold an office right there on campus of Ohio State. So this might be like a have your cake and eat it too kind of thing, where he doesn't have the stresses and the pressures of being the everyday head coach, but still will be as involved as he kind of wants to be in the program, which might, be the best of both worlds for him, especially as he heals from a brain cyst. The holidays, admittedly, are always kind of a bit of a blur between all the family and the parties and, the New Year. And I can't. Did Notre Dame play over the holidays?
Not sure. I'm still waiting for the Cotton Bowl to start. I hear it's going to be a great game. I'm excited. Clemson and Notre Dame are two awesome teams. And
wait a second.
I tried to scrub it from my memory, man.
No, I think you may already have, because they did play that game, and it didn't exactly go great for your alma mater, Notre Dame, and the Irish. So my question for you is, how bad was this for Notre Dame, and what does it mean moving forward?
I think it was really bad perception-wise going into this game, because on the field you can look at a number of football reasons why something like this snowballs, but it's not indicative of the quality of the team. But as far as national perception, it's one thing for the outside world to think that Notre Dame can't perform in big games and whatever that means from the fan perspective. But I think inside that college football playoff room, you have to start to wonder, and next time Notre Dame gets into this position, I should say, does the committee start to think about this? Do the human beings in that room look and say, you know what, we've got a 12-0 Notre Dame team or an 11-1 team that maybe just lost in the SEC title? Do we subconsciously feel how this has already gone, and does that start to cost Notre Dame now that this is their first shot of it in the college football playoff in this new format?
I like where you went here. I didn't expect you to do it, because I totally kind of agree with you. I think that the committee will look at it and say, Notre Dame, they're not really in a conference, and they didn't really win a conference championship, and we saw what happened last year. I think there will be reverberations from this loss in upcoming years. Do you think that's fair to say?
I think that's fair to say, but I also think it's going to be dependent on what that season looks like. This year for Notre Dame, a lot of people attacked the schedule, and while it wasn't as bad as people wanted to make it out, when the Blue Bloods on your schedule, the Florida States, the Stanfords of the world, don't perform up to par on the rest of the season, it makes you look worse. If you've got a Notre Dame team that manages to run through a year where their schedule is top 10 in strength like it normally is, and they manage to look dominant during that run, I think you're going to still see the ability for them to break through that perception, but it's going to be an uphill battle for sure.
Well, the committee considers so many things, strength of schedule and how impressive they were in their wins and how actually strong their losses were. But one thing I think that we can really tell is a true indicator of how well a college football team is going to play on the field is, did their mascot or one of their fans get attacked by an animal before the game? Because if you see this bald eagle landed on top of an Irish fan before the game. Look at the size of that bird. And he's waving. It looks like he even has an adult beverage in his hand. If a bald eagle landed on you, could you keep it as calm as that Irish?
Oh, no chance.
Notre Dame fan did.
You see the talons on that animal. There's not a chance I'm keeping my cool. And to be honest, that's the one reason I thought we were going to be okay, because you're right. It was a pointed attack on a Notre Dame fan in the crowd, so automatically my antennas are up. But once I saw his response, I said, if we can handle that kind of adversity pregame, there's nothing Clemson can throw at us that'll top that, and I was very wrong.
Very, very wrong. Right now it is time for News That Matters. So, around the holidays, there's usually young children kind of get obsessed with one present, like the one thing that they really want, the one thing that they can't go the holiday season without. And with those expectations, oftentimes comes disappointment. There was a 7-year-old boy in Canada who was gifted a pair of snow pants. Not exactly a new bike, not the latest Nintendo Switch or whatever, but he was so upset about receiving these snow pants that he called 911, and the police came to his home to discuss the incident with his parents. Do you support this reaction to the gift of snow pants over the holidays?
Absolutely, and I'm not sure where the age of the switch happens, where utility becomes prized over just the desire to have the thing that you have so coveted, but I imagine that age is still well below where he's at right now. He's using the resources at his disposal, all right? We talk about this all the time, how college athletes don't have a lot at their disposal. If you're a kid, you don't have a lot working in your favor as far as a recourse against your parents if you think they've wronged you in this situation. So, little man's just using what he's got in front of him, and he used it the right way.
I mean, I can't support using these sort of like police resources this way. However, you're making a great point. Also, snow pants, like those are something you should be provided if you live in Canada. Like you kind of need to give me snow pants. That's not really a gift. It's kind of like a necessity. Like I don't even think they probably tax these things. So I'm with him. Maybe 911 wasn't the perfect thing to do, but he didn't have a lot else to do. And I really respect him for making that call. And shout out to the police officers that had to deal with it. Coming up next, there is some really interesting news in the NFL. It has nothing to do with the wild card games and everything to do with the drama in Pittsburgh. We'll discuss it right after this. What is the biggest animal you think you could take in a fight?
I always talked about being the guy with irrational confidence, so I have to have that in this case. I'm going elephant.
I mean, I'm just trying to think what dollar amount that I would pay to see this fight. I think I would like sell one of my children just to watch you fight an elephant.
Talk individual.
Coming to you live from the Seaport District in Pier 17 here in Lower Manhattan and brought to you by Chase. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Mike Golick Jr. in for Jalen, and all the drama in the NFL has nothing to do with the great slate of wild card games we have coming up this weekend, and everything to do with Antonio Brown and Big Ben and Le'Veon Bell and Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. By now you've heard the reports that there were some blow-ups at practice, and Antonio Brown wasn't happy, and he missed some practice, and maybe it wasn't an injured leg were the reason that he didn't play on Sunday. And now we have the latest. This is from Big Ben's weekly radio appearance. Let's listen to Roethlisberger.
That's the kind of baffling thing to me is people are making a big deal about a walkthrough on Wednesday that there was a blow-up, a fight between he and I. I don't know anything about that. If there was a blow-up or something, I sure as heck didn't see it. I consider him to be one of my closest friends on the team, so I'm not really sure why or where some of this blow-up is coming from. I've reached out to him numerous times. I've called him, texted him. I know other guys on the team have too, and haven't heard back from him. But Thursday morning, he and I talked, and there was no issue. So I'm not really sure.
So there are reports of a blow-up between Big Ben and Antonio Brown, and then Big Ben says, I don't even know what they're talking about. I would probably know about it if there really was a thing on Wednesday. I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened, but something tells me that perhaps, just perhaps, Big Ben is on the radio trying to kind of put a smokescreen over some tension that's happening during practice. What do you think really happened on that Wednesday?
I think exactly what we've heard. We've heard enough of the rumblings around and about Antonio Brown now for really the last couple of years, but it's stuff that everyone near Pittsburgh is telling us has been going on for quite some time, to where this not only sounds believable, but it sounds like the more than likely situation that actually went down in here. And I'm more inclined to believe it because he also didn't end up playing in this game. And the more smoke we hear about this idea that it wasn't because of a knee injury we've had before, the more I'm likely to believe that the fire started in a situation like this, where a guy in Antonio Brown, who's clearly been and had a little bit of this diva in him for longer than we've known, acted up in a way that probably cost this team in real portions of the season.
And what I find interesting about this is you can not tell the truth but also not lie. Like, Big Ben just said, I didn't see the blow up. But Big Ben, did you have a tense conversation? Was there maybe an argument? Was there a disagreement? Did something happen? And there's also this angle, too, I want to talk to you about. Mike Tomlin said that they were going to get his leg looked at, that there was, there was an injury. Now, again, sometimes you don't have to lie to not tell the truth. How much do you think this injury was a factor in Antonio Brown not playing on Sunday?
I'm sure it was somewhat of a factor, but considering what was at stake, you were going to be working overtime, and this is the case in almost any situation where the stakes are real and you've got an injury that's borderline. You're doing pretty much everything you can to numb, to shoot up, whatever you have to do to get an injury to a place where you can be on the field and be effective at a critical time of year for your team. So Mike Tomlin, I think we probably haven't given him enough credit for the master class he's put on in keeping these kinds of outbursts that I have a feeling have occurred with more regularity than we have seen in the public from ever leaking to the outside. So maybe he doesn't get enough credit for the coaching job that he's done in Pittsburgh there with this kind of stuff simmering just below the surface.
I'm glad you brought that up because there seems to be a lot of people that point the finger at Mike Tomlin for not keeping everything under control. And it's like, so you know what? There's probably a lot going on in Pittsburgh during those practices that we don't hear about, that we don't know about. So let's just reserve a little judgment on Coach Tomlin. Moving on, the drama and the rumors are not only in Pittsburgh in the NFL. There are a lot of rumors and reports about the Warriors. So it's now time for something new. It's called Warriors Rumors. Something or nothing. The first I find very interesting. Zach Lowe, our friend and colleague, wrote a very long piece about Anthony Davis and his potential, I don't call it free agency or pre-agency or him moving teams as sort of like the biggest story in the NBA. And one piece of this story, this wasn't the headline, but if you read down to it, was this about the Warriors. Quote, the Warriors have been publicly linked to Davis before and would surely be interested, sources say, but it's hard to find a realistic path ahead of next season. They aren't trading Curry or Durant for him. Durant is a free agent anyway. Draymond Green probably isn't enticing enough as a centerpiece considering what else the Warriors have in draft picks and young players. Klay Thompson is a free agent too, and it seems unlikely he would agree to a sign-and-trade sending him to New Orleans. Okay, to paraphrase all of that, the Warriors are interested in Davis. Of course they are. Who wouldn't be interested in Davis, especially if you're a team with the players that the Warriors have? But there's no clear path to him coming to the Warriors in a trade. Anthony Davis and the Warriors showing interest in him. Something or nothing?
I'm going to go nothing on this one just because, like you said, the only path here, because it being very unclear, would be this idea that Kevin Durant, who is an impending free agent, would go elsewhere in all of this. And if you don't believe that that is a likelihood, then this seems even less likely for a guy in Anthony Davis that's been pretty tight-lipped about the whole process. So I'm going to go nothing on this one just because this Warriors thing is starting to reach that point of critical mass where I'm going to need to see what parts fall off before any more major ones are coming in.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm going to throw a big nothing at this, too. It's like basically Zach Lowe is like, yeah, sure, they want Anthony Davis, but they cannot get Anthony Davis, so that's the end of that. This one's a little more interesting. In an interview with Chris Haynes, shout to him, former colleague, Kevin Durant spoke about his future, and he said in his next deal, he wants to get as much money as possible. He wants to stack money and play basketball. Now, without boring you with all of the details, essentially the most money can be offered to him from the Warriors with a 5-year, $221 million deal. However, the other teams can offer him a 4-year, $164 million deal, and those are based on salary cap projections in the future. Mike Golick Jr., Kevin Durant, saying that he wants as much money as possible in his next deal. Something or nothing?
I think this is something, and if we follow what Kevin Durant's done, it's really been in a lot of senses the LeBron James blueprint. And I think being out in Golden State, being able to feel like he's adequately compensated and getting the full extent of what he deserves, and also being in an area where he can grow off the court. We've heard about some of the interest that he has in that area near Silicon Valley, some of the stuff that he wants to get in outside of basketball, and seeing the way that LeBron and some of the other high-profile NBA players have started to make that a bigger portion of their life. I think these are all things that now that his championship legacy is getting more and more secure, Kevin Durant's going to want to focus on, and it makes the most sense to do it where he's at now.
It's interesting. Like you said, if we look at what Kevin Durant's done in the past, it's like I'm looking at what he's done in the past. I have no idea what he's going to do in the future. I can see him leave for the Knicks. I can see him sign 5 years with the Warriors. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm going to be here for every single detail of it after the season. Finally, final rumor. Boogie Cousins is considering staying with the Warriors after this year to build value after he's coming off an Achilles injury. Something or nothing?
I think that's something. Now, it could be something in two senses. One, I'm not sure maybe what he's feeling coming back from this. We know for guys over 275 pounds, this Achilles injury in the recovery process poses some pretty unique challenges. So maybe it's been a little bit tougher to go, and the second half of this season isn't looking like as much of a sure thing as far as going out there and feeling all of himself. And also, you might look around and say, hey, you know what? It's pretty nice up here. I could do in this environment. I could do the West Coast in all these ways that maybe once you're in it, only really truly show themselves for how valuable they are to a guy when he's making this kind of decision.
Coming up next on Jalen Jacoby, Michael Jr. stays with us, and James Harden stays scoring 40 points every time he puts on basketball sneakers. We'll break it down after this.